Good morning. If you're tuning in, you're still watching Good Morning Kenya. Right here now, we're talking about matters of Conservancy and focusing on what is happening down in Laikipia. Laikipia has been making, headlines for the wrong reasons, especially when it comes to matters of security. But now we're going to be looking at what conservancies within Laikipia County are doing to maintain the peace and also ensure that there is coexistence between wildlife and humans, so to speak. To take us through this conversation is none other than the chairperson of the Lower Community Conservancy down in Laikipia County, and he is Matthew Naiputari. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Thank you for making time.
Thank you.
Yes,
I'm really humbled to be here.
Asante. Your name is rather heavy on my tongue. You'll have to pardon us for that. Where we come from, where having an R and an N in a name is quite the feat, but I hope I got it correct.
Yeah, you got it correct.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, from where you sit, let's start off with the issue that has been making headlines for a couple of months right now, the issue of insecurity in Laikipia County, especially within the conservancies themselves. From where you sit, where does the problem lie?
Basically, from where I sit, the problem basically came as a result of the long drought. It is now a full year since we got enough rains. But basically, the insecurity is brought by those animals that come from outside Laikipia. The Laikipia community is a community that is actually that plants it is grazing, and whenever we don't have enough, we have an agreement, a civilized way of dialogue with our brothers in the private conservancies, where we have an agreement, a grazing agreement. We pay for grazing fee because the indigenous Laikipia cows don't go outside the county. We actually graze within our county, so we actually don't move on from this point to another point, basically looking for pastures because we plan our grazing. But the insecurity, whenever there is infection from outside counties, more so from Isiolo and Samburu, there is a challenge of security because those guys move to Laikipia, and there is as well a challenge of the small arms. You look at the case of where we had an issue with Loisaba. I border Loisaba Conservancy. We are neighbors. We do correlate in a certain way, despite the fact that Loisaba is a private conservancy and Naibunga Lower is a community conservancy. There is a formal way where how we do things. At the moment, it's now 12 months since we had an agreement with Loisaba to put our cows in Loisaba Conservancy because of the lack of pastures. We as well have a way of doing our ecotourism because we have ecologists. I have 2 ecologists in my conservancy. Loisaba has several ecologists, and this is how we relate. We have an agreement where we can take our clients to Loisaba for game drive because they have vast land where they are doing conservation and a lot of wildlife found there. We as well have like taking them also like Koija Stabed. Koija Stabed is a community lodge.
Now, from where you sit, I think you have pointed out 2 or 3 things. The issue when it comes to matter security, this is invasion, by other communities within the Laikipia County, from outside Laikipia County, coming into these conservancies, either privately owned and such, and destabilizing the working arrangement that you have. Because I understand now it has come out that you have a grazing agreement that allows you to, coexist without any push and pull, so to speak. The other thing is the issue of climate change, and this has come out on issues of drought. And one of the ways you're also making matters of conservation worthwhile is the issue of ecotourism. Now, before we look at, the Conservancy itself, there's been a question, and I have had some literal works by Kombani's, actually the conservation question. And there's been talk that conservation, or rather matters of conservancy, are very alien to a majority of Kenyans, that whenever they hear conservation or conservancy, it is owned by an expatriate, so to speak. Have you had this challenge, having communities to come on board and help you execute, or rather even run this conservancy that you have?
Thank you. Basically, when this issue of conservation first came, people tried to resist it. That time, I was actually in my primary level of education. I was just privileged to hear the discussions, though I did not actually understand well what they were talking. But that one came and passed, and we came to realize that conservation is a good thing. It benefits our communities in several ways, and at the moment, it is us as communities do own conservation. We go to an extent of even giving out certain acreage of land for conservation. Conservation is actually everything now in our conservancy, or down there at the community, because that's where we get we fund education. It is actually an alternative to pastoralism. It is actually, conservation has brought security. So basically, so to speak, conservation is everything at the moment in our community. Yeah. So it's no longer a foreign thing. It's no longer owned by foreigners or experts. It is actually community owned. Conservation at the moment is community owned.
Well, that is good, because there's always been that notion that matters of conservation are, left to expatriates, that we do not have our own very own communities actually running these conservancies. You've said education, security, as well as an alternative to pastoralism. Let's zero in as an alternative to pastoralism, because this is maybe make us understand, the overall benefit of having conservancies that are working and run by the communities. The alternative to pastoralism. Expound.
Yeah, what I meant by saying an alternative to pastoralism, in our community, pastoralism is our economic way of living. It's an economic model, because we depend purely on our animals. But when conservation came and it brought in ecotourism. As I was speaking earlier, I have personally in the Conservancy 2 lodges. There is a lodge called Koja Community Lodge, Koja Starbeds. There is Ongaboli Bandas. And when we have clients, they bring in cash. In actually 2 ways. They pay for the being accommodated in the lodge. They visit our cultural manyatas, where they are taken through our the Maasai cultural activities, the rite of passage, and there they as well pay. There is actually the beadwork by our women. Our women do the beadwork, and it actually empowers our women economically. The beadwork actually is as well empowering. And even the youths, when you go to the cultural manyata, there is actually the Moran dances that are performed by the warriors. So it even keeps our youths busy.
Young and busy.
Yeah.
Ecotourism. Conservation, ecotourism. Now, sir, we've talked about matters of climate change and drought. What are you doing in the short term? Because we're expecting, now we are having the rains, but by around February, kutakuwa na kiangazi. the issue of water shortage and also lack of pasture. How do we address it where Conservancy is concerned, at least in the short term and also in the long term? What would be your recommendations?
Yeah, at the moment, so unfortunate because down where in Laikipia North there are no rains. You people are privileged to have rains here, but in short term, we have that agreement that I talked about earlier. At the moment, I think 90% of our cows are in private conservancies. They are in 3 conservancies. They are in Luisaba, Impala, and in a certain farm called Lorok. At the moment, we are keeping our cows there, but as a long term, we have as well several programs with Luisaba Conservancy. I like talking about Luisaba Conservancy because we partner in several ways. We have a program where we are trying to make pastoralism commercial. So we have a program of steer fattening. So we take our the steers from our breeding cows, we fatten. After 3 or 4 months, we sell. So it makes it a continuous process. And that way, it empowers us economically. And it actually makes us maintain the pastures because we are trying to use it as a way of destocking. We as well have a program called the Cal cows, those cows that actually they're older a bit, so we fatten and sell. It's a way as well of destocking, and it's a way of empowering the community economically. Yeah.
Now, we have spoken about the human aspect. Now let's look at the wildlife, because the conservancies are within, the wildlife ecosystem. So as players who are benefiting from, having this wildlife around you, what are you doing to also support the normal life of this wildlife? We have been talking about the conservation, the conservancies and such, and the destruction of animal corridors. From where you sit, what are you doing? What are you doing to benefit this wildlife that you are, sharing an ecosystem?
Yeah, long since I think the world was created, the Maasais used to live with animals, these wild animals. So we are actually friendly to the wildlife. I think we started conservation long ago, before we came to realize the word conservation, what it means. There is in our lodges, there is certain acreage of land we put aside purely for wildlife conservation, so that our wildlife can get their natural habitat, so that they don't actually get disturbed or they move. So that one is a way actually of maintaining our life. Secondly, the Conservancy has rangers, armed rangers, who normally patrol and make sure that our wildlife are safe. So we have a safe haven for our wildlife. So basically, when you talk of how do wildlife benefit, they benefit because we are actually the ones protecting the wildlife, even the community outside there. And whenever they see most probably an injured or a sick animal, they report to the Conservancy. We report to KWS because we partner in a way with KWS. So that's how we make sure, because we are also benefiting from if we don't have the wildlife at our co-conservation areas, it means we will not do game drives.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, talking about that, a report was made public towards the end of the year that indicated that there's been an uptake of bushmeat during the financial year 2020-2021. Have you had an issue within your conservancy on the issue of bushmeat, and if there is, how have you handled it?
We don't actually have that issue. I as well read and we know how it went, but down at Laikipia, the Maasais actually don't like the bushmeat. We don't feed on wildlife. So basically that makes us to protect the wildlife, and we don't trade in bushmeat. We don't at all.
So that is not an issue you have dumping.
You don't have that issue.
Now the issue of dumping, we had the government come in and say that no plastic is going to be allowed within its national parks and speak. Talking about matters of the COP26 and the issues of climate change, the issue of dumping of plastic is quite a challenge in the rangelands where Laikipia falls into place. What are you doing? What measures have you taken up as a conservancy to get rid of this issue of plastic dumping? Is there recycling going on? Who are you partnering with?
We don't have actually recycling going on, but being a conservation community, at our local primary and secondary school, we have several clubs that are doing as well conservation. So whenever there is a way we do a round off of cleanup in our community, so that we make sure that we collect the waste plastics, and we make sure that we ban, because at the moment we don't have a recycling plant. So that's how we are doing it. Yeah.
So from where you sit and as you come to a close to this conversation, Mr. Matthew, if someone was to ask you the conservation question, is it beneficial to the community, or is it just very good a term to speak in theory?
That one is an outright answer, which is yes, we do benefit. I'm as well a product of conservation. In my high school and when I was in Kenya Methodist University, I benefited from conservation because we have a kitty that where we pool money for bursaries. So basically, conservation is supporting education, as I spoke earlier, because we do offer bursaries to our school-going kids in the university, in our colleges, in the high school. Secondly, we have schools that are built out of conservation. When you go to be specific to Ewaso Primary School, where I school, the whole infrastructure is done out of conservation. It has a live fenced out of conservation. So basically, conservation is beneficial to the community. Secondly, the lodges incomes benefit the community directly. So basically, conservation is benefiting our community. The other thing, conservation is helping us maintain our culture. We are actually very proud of our culture. And as you know, Maasais they are proud of being Maasais because of the culture. So even conservation is making us keep our culture, as well as supporting us economically. When you go to Naibunga is actually made of 3 conservancies that use the same word Naibunga. And to expound more, Naibunga means is coming together. Naibunga, yani ni kushikana. So we have 3 conservancies. There is Naibunga Upper, at the upper side of it. There is Naibunga Central, and there is Naibunga Lower, where I share. So basically, at the moment, we have a very big workforce, staffs, around 50, being paid and maintained by conservation. We have 3 land cruisers for security patrol, being funded and maintained by conservation. So basically, conservation is everything in our community. It is beneficial. It's an outright question. When you go to our members, the community members, they will as well answer you the way I'm answering you. It's an outright answer.
For you, it is working.
Yeah.
Okay. In a nutshell and a parting shot, when we're talking about matters of conservation and also human-wildlife conflict and borrowing heavily on the issue of climate change and COP26, what would be your parting shot for this country?
Thank you. And I actually wanted to speak about the human-wildlife conflict,
yes,
because
sure.
it is, we are experiencing it. And at the moment, there is a project we are doing as a conservancy, which is called the elephant fence. We are actually trying to keep elephants off the settlement area. And we have a fence that is actually starting January, being funded by an organization that we work in called the Northern Rangeland Trust, NRT, I think you have heard of it.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, and we are actually trying to mitigate the conflict between most of the elephant and the humans, because there's whenever we talk of wildlife conflict, human-wildlife conflict, people may take it as the first step as going to elephants, but there are other animals that do conflict with humans, the lions, the hyenas, but basically elephants is an animal that is making us
that is your main challenge.
Yeah, it's
now
actually
talking about human-wildlife conflict and this particular fence that you're planning to put up in January. I read somewhere that there's new technology when it comes to fencing. We have seen some of the conservancies have come up with a 10% fence, where you fence 10%, then the rest is left as open for the animals to actually cross. And there's also the use of bees in the fencing. Is this something, is that the technology you'd want to adopt? The issue of bees, because I know bees and elephants, where there's a bee, they would never find an elephant.
Talking of bees, when you go to Mosoa down at Koija, people are practicing bee farming naturally. So there is that way where people are putting hives. But the reason as to why we decided to come with an elephant fence, it's actually a 2-strand wire. It is because you know, there is a plant that is called the opuntia, certain cactus. Then the elephants feed on that cactus, and that cactus is 90% water. So it means that even the elephants don't go for watering. So, and that keeps elephants in the settlement for long. So we are just trying to keep elephants off the settlement area. Only that other part is left free for animals, and we have taken into consideration the natural corridors. We don't cross the corridors. Yeah.
Very well said. If you've been tuning in, we've been talking about matters of conservation, and our guest has been none other than the chairman of the Lower Community Conservancy, that is Matthew Naiputari. Yes, where I come from, those N's and R's, well, quite difficult there. And he says for humans and wildlife to coexist, there has to be a concerted effort, especially from us as humans there, to keep our corridors open, or rather animal corridors open, and that conservation is not as alien as it was 20 years back. Looking at matters of climate change and borrowing heavily from the COP26, the onus is on you and I to actually keep the environment clean and do what you can to ensure that, you know, also wildlife gets its say within the ecosystems. I'm Regina Manyara. This brings us up to matters of conservation, so to speak, and conservancy right here. But we're not done. You're still watching Good Morning Kenya.